I didn't have money or anything. I was always like this. I didn't play football. I didn't play basketball. Man, but what was really cool about this is that I could like sit down at keys, and then all of a sudden, like girls treated me so much different, right? you know. And I'd be sitting down, I'd be thinking, and it was so cool because, being so young at Harvard, right? Everybody who was anyone that I could possibly date was 2 to 3 years older than I was. And, I listened to a lot of Stevie Wonder and stuff, and I could, sit down and play. And, like I said, girls would start looking at me differently, and I said, man, I could really get used to this, This would be awesome. So I came up with this business plan. My business plan was that I was going to sell beats, right? So the idea is, they have a lot of different solutions now where you can actually sell your beats online. But for me, I didn't have the online ability to be able to do this. So I went to Kinko's, which is a copy center, and I made these flyers. And where I was from, or where I had spent my time in Boston, was in Cambridge. So I went out to the hood. So I took the #1 bus and went all the way down to Roxbury, and I put up my flyers everywhere, and my business plan was very simple. I was going to sell 5 beats a week, and I was going to sell my beats at $200 a beat. So 5 beats a week, that's $1,000 a week, 52 weeks in a year, $52,000. I'm doing great. I'm doing just as well as all my other compatriots who had decided to go through the grueling recruitment process. But I was just, selling beats and basically sitting in my little room making these little beats, and I was selling them, and everything was going to be great, and I'd be making as much money as if I was a consultant somewhere at Boston Consulting Group, which is what I actually told my parents I was doing, right? Yeah. Right. So, what you find in business, though, is that sometimes your projections may be how shall I say, optimistic, to say the least, right? So what I found is that although I had predicted I would be selling these beats like hotcakes, and what these beats are just like these little tracks, and people could rap over them or sing on them, and there were a lot of artists, who were really actually hustlers, right, in the hood, and these were guys that they wanted to clean them, they wanted to clean their careers up, right, because they realized there wasn't much of a future in selling drugs, right? They may potentially end up in jail and stuff. But they also knew that there were a lot of people who were telling these stories of being drug dealers and, all of this other awesome stuff, and made for great entertainment on rap records, right? So this is what I was thinking. I was saying, man, there's got to be a huge market for this. And I ended up selling maybe like 1 beat a month or 2 a month. And eventually, I was basically homeless and living behind my friend's barbershop, right? And so, long story short, I fought. I found a couple of folks that I could collaborate with, and eventually, I kind of turned the ship around from being homeless to actually landing a record deal with someone. And it was great. We made some money. And fast forward, it was great. We made some money. I got some exposure. People were like, oh, who's the wonderkind that actually makes all these beats, and he's doing awesome songs and everything. It led to a management contract with Puff Daddy. I did 2 years with him. And one of the things that I realized that with the advent of new media, the music business was really changing. And so for me, at the very beginning, I was really just about how can I actually make as much money as possible in the shortest amount of time so that I could never, ever, ever again have to worry about doing anything except for sitting behind these keys and just playing and, having girls look at me and love what I did, right? I realized when I got my first publishing deal in New York City, it was from one of the biggest titans of the music business, and his name is Tommy Mottola. Now, Tommy Mottola was once married to Mariah Carey. He was the CEO of Sony Music Corporation. He had a very huge feud with Michael Jackson. He's responsible for some of the biggest, success stories in music, and he gave me like $400,000 or $500,000, somewhere in between, the biggest check I'd ever seen in my whole life, right? And I thought to myself, there's no way that this could actually be sustainable. I mean, when you really think about it, it's a huge dice roll on someone's future earnings. And when I looked at the contract, it's a returnable, it's an only recoupable advance that they were giving. And so I started to analyze the music business for various reasons, most of all just because I didn't believe that this type of income could be sustainable for me, even though I was very happy with it, right? And so one of the things that happened is, under my tenure with Puff Daddy, I was working on all the biggest records. He was producing at the time the soundtrack for the Bad Boys 2 movie with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. And so all the biggest names in the world were on this: Justin Timberlake, Mary J. Blige, Beyonce. I actually produced a record for Beyonce on that soundtrack. And in spite of working with all of these big artists,